guys, it's Abby. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be showing you 25 terrifying TikToks. If you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up, click the subscribe button down below, and turn on post notifications so you never miss a video. I post every Sunday and sometimes Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And other than that, let's just get right on into the video. Our first TikTok is by the user FireLlama1441. She tells us a story about how she believes to have spoken to a demon while she was staying at a hospital.
In honor of spooky season, I thought I would tell you the story, which I believe to my core is real, about the time that I had a conversation with a paranormal, supernatural entity, if you will. This all started right in the beginning of COVID. While you guys were all freaking out about COVID, I was freaking out because I had just been diagnosed with thyroid cancer. It was very scary. I've never been sick like that before. So obviously I had a lot of thoughts about death, a lot of thoughts about like what my future looks like. And because of COVID, the hospital had all these new protocols about patients coming in. So I had to do all of my cancer stuff by myself because my husband, my mom, no one was allowed inside the hospital except the patient. So when I had to get my thyroid removed, I have a little tiny scar right here. I had to go in by myself. So my husband drops me off outside of the hospital, and like any normal person, I was scared. I never had major surgery before. The cancer word is very scary. My husband couldn't go in with me. So then I change into, one of those cute nighties, and I'm put onto a floor almost by myself. Like, I know there was one other person across the way from me because I heard them coughing a lot. And then there was the two nurses that were on that floor. Other than that, the floor was empty. It was very quiet in there. And I have not been giving any drugs or anything like that yet, okay? I'm just waiting in bed for my surgery to start, okay? So while I'm laying there, a man comes in. He's blonde, super pale, light blue eyes, and he's wearing all black. And at first I think he's wearing one of those priest collars, but it's just his outfit. It wasn't actually one of those collars. But in my mind, I kind of I was like, oh, he must be a chaplain. Those are, if you don't know, a chaplain is a religious person that comes into hospitals and talks to patients and stuff to make them feel better. Anyway, so that's who I assumed he was. So he came in and he said, oh, you must be Milena. And again, I thought he worked for the hospital. So I said, yes. And he said, oh, you're here by yourself? And I thought that was a weird comment because it's the hospital protocol that I couldn't have any family members with me. So I was like, yes, my husband had to drop me off. And he goes, oh, you're married. And I was like, yeah. And he's like, and do you like your life? And at this point, I started to get a really weird feeling about this guy. And he was just standing against the wall talking to me. And I was like, yes, I really like my life. And he goes, were you scared when you found out you had cancer? And again, I didn't I just assumed he had a reference sheet about my illness, And I was like, I am scared, but my doctors have all reassured me that this is the best cancer to get and I'm going to be fine. And he goes, do you feel like you're going to be fine? And I was like, yes, I do. And again, this man is just really intently staring at me. And he said, can I ask you a question? And I said, sure. And he's like, are you afraid of dying? And I, at that point, felt like he did not work for the hospital. And I was getting really afraid. I could feel myself getting really afraid. And then all of a sudden, monitors started beeping, right? A lot of monitors started going off. And the two nurses that were on that floor came in and they were like, honey, you need to calm down. Your heart rate is too high. And I was like, what? And they're like, you need to take a deep breath. And while they're doing all of this, that man is still standing there and they are not acting like he is right there. I'm looking at him, but they are not. And once they were able to get the beeping to stop, the nurse said, well, it's time for surgery anyways. Let's move you to the operating room. Again, this man is just standing there and they are wheeling me out of this little room that I'm in. And he goes, well, I hope we don't meet anytime soon, Milena. And it was ominous as fuck, you guys. I was scared. I really felt so scared. And again, I wasn't on any drugs. And afterwards, I spoke to my husband about this. And I was like, that's kind of creepy. And he, again, because no one was there, he was like, I'm sure it was just someone that works, that's a chaplain. And he was just saying he hopes he doesn't see me again. I'm not going to be sick anymore, right? But it still lingered. Like, I felt very cold, like very weird feelings after this. So I called the hospital like the next week because they had such a crazy protocol about who can come in and out of the hospital. I thought it was a little weird that they were letting a chaplain in. So I called the hospital about a week later and I was like, hi, I'm just wondering if you're allowing chaplains into the hospital right now because of COVID. And they said starting last month, they were not allowing chaplains or any like extra people into the hospital. So I wanted to be like, who the fuck did I talk to then? Yeah, I think about that guy all the time. I can't even call him a guy. Like, I don't know what he is. And I still don't know who, like, if it was like a demon or the Grim Reaper, but I will never forget that. And I think it was real. My husband thinks maybe I was just like very stressed out and like I had a lot going on, but like I know that shit was real. And like the fact that the nurses didn't even acknowledge his presence, I don't know. Let me know if you know who it could be, or if you think maybe I was just tripping. But that is my spooky story.
One thing I think is very interesting is that she automatically jumps to the turn on demon. I feel like he did ask some interesting questions where maybe there could be malicious intent behind it. It also could have just been, you know, thought-provoking, ghosty questions, I guess. I don't think there was anything specifically done to show that he was for sure evil. Honestly, it could have just been like the spirit of a chaplain who passed on and was visiting her. But I do agree that the questions were a little bit odd. You'd think in that sense it probably would be more like they try to be comforting and ask like comforting questions, whereas this seems to have kind of made her uncomfortable and set her on edge, obviously since she thinks it was a demon. I do 100% believe her story because I have heard so many things about people being tended to by nurses that apparently didn't exist, or seeing someone, you know, walk into their room in a hospital. And I feel like there's a lot of energy in hospitals from people who have passed on, and also just like trauma and like emotions are high at hospitals. So I think it is a high likelihood that she came across something and something visited her, but I just really think it's interesting that her mind immediately went to demon rather than, you know, just some kind-hearted spirit paying her a visit. Our next TikTok is by the user Ashley Inc., and she shares a story about a time someone or something entered her tent while she was camping.
Tell me a story about a time that you saw something that you have no explanation for. I'll tell you mine. Story time about the time I went camping and saw someone or something come into my tent, and I still have no explanation 10 years later. In 2014, I was dating a guy and we decided we were going to go camping at the Indiana Dunes State Park. If you've never been there, it's actually gorgeous. It's 2,000 acres of Lake Michigan access, huge sand dunes and campgrounds. I grew up camping there with my family in the summers and I was very familiar with it. So we book a campsite at the farthest end of the campground, about 2.5 miles from the campground entrance. We booked 2 nights during the week. He was a tattooer and I was a bartender, so it just worked best for our schedule. It was also right after Labor Day. Kids had already gone back to school, so really quiet time of year for this campground. We pull in past the general store, past a few RVs. I could probably count them on one hand with electrical hookups, and drive all the way back to our campsite. Our campsite was called primitive camping, which means there's no electrical hookups. It's completely dark at night. We pitched the tent, we brought a bunch of food, so we spent the night like cooking and just hanging out by the fire. The whole time we're there, we don't see a single other person besides when we drove to the general store about 2 miles away to pick up firewood and then drove back. But nobody camping around us, nobody walking, like nobody within even earshot of us. We had a few light drinks, but we weren't big drinkers, so I feel like this is important because I've told people this story and they're like, oh, were you on anything? And the answer is no. The fire's almost out, it's smoldering, and we decided to go to bed about 2 o'clock in the morning. I don't know what time this was, but it was when it was still dark out, so between 2 and 6 in the morning when the sun comes up. But I woke up to the sound of the tent zipper unzipping. I look at the tent entrance, I see a black figure illuminated by the smoldering campfire in the background. Can't make out his features, but obviously it's my ex coming in after using the bathroom or something. So I roll over and I go back to sleep. I wake up in the morning, my ex isn't in the tent, he's already out by the fire making campfire coffee. So I go out and I sit down and have a cup of coffee. He's like, how'd you sleep? I'm like, good. He's like, hey, if you wake up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, just wake me up. Like, it's probably not good for you to be out in the dark by yourself. I was like, I didn't leave the tent last night, but I saw you coming back in the tent after you left. And he just stared at me and he was like, I didn't leave the tent last night. I thought that was you. And we were both shook. Like, we spent a few minutes arguing back and forth. Like, yeah, you must have left the tent. And he's like, no, I didn't leave the tent. Like, you must have. And I was like, no, I didn't. It freaked us out enough where we did not stay the second night. We packed up the tent after breakfast and left. Again, nobody camping around us. So I have a few explanations for this. One, it could have been a park ranger checking in on us. I've run this story by a friend though, who is a park ranger in Tennessee where I live now. And he was like, a park ranger would not have opened your tent without announcing themselves. 2 is that it was an intoxicated person who lost the way back to their own campsite and thought that ours was theirs. But I feel like if that was the case, we would have heard more of a commotion, especially if they were intoxicated enough to not know where their tent was. And again, there was nobody camping anywhere near us. 3, which creeps me out the most, is the thought that it was somebody with malicious intent that opened up the tent and saw there were 2 people sleeping inside and decided against acting on what they were going to do. My ex and I both even considered the fact that it could have been like a raccoon or an animal, because raccoons are crafty, they can open zippers, but we both distinctly saw a human figure staring into the tent. While I know this is not the scariest story ever told, it is still one of the most terrifying things that's ever happened to me, knowing that someone saw me in a vulnerable state sleeping and could have done whatever they wanted. I still don't like state parks 10 years later, and I think about this quite often. Stitches, duets, and comments are on, so tell me your stories. I want to be freaked out.
I think that's one of many reasons why I will never go camping, besides the fact that I prefer, you know, like running water and bathrooms that don't have spiders in them, which, hey, if you're cool with that, good for you. I would love to be cool with that. I really can't. But I just personally would never feel safe camping in a tent. Like, I need my locked doors and like walls that aren't made of fabric, you know, like I need a more stable sleeping environment than, you know, canvas stretched over some plastic poles, you know? That just scares me so much. The fact that you can be sleeping and someone can just come up to your tent and unzip it and peer at you in your sleep, that's really a huge deterrent for me going camping. But this story, obviously it could go both ways. It could have been a person, but what really makes me wonder about this story is the fact that she didn't hear, like she said, if it was like a drunk person who was accidentally like stumbling to their tent because they mistook it for theirs, it would be more of like a commotion outside. It'd be very obvious like what the situation was. So it kind of leaves you with 1 or 2 options, which is someone with malicious intent who tried to sneak into her tent, or some kind of creature, whether it be a flesh pedestrian or a ghost, or, you know, who knows what else lives out there in the wilderness that we have yet to discover or prove. There are any number of things it could have been from the supernatural world. So either way, I think it is incredibly scary that something is just peering over you while you are asleep and in such a vulnerable position. And I also think it makes it even scarier, the fact that they both saw it. It wasn't just like one or the other of them. They both saw it and thought it was the other one. And it turns out that it was either. Personally, I will not be camping for this reason. But if you do camp, keep an eye out for unwanted visitors staring at you in your sleep. Our next TikTok is by the user Oya Sumi Sushi. His name is Josh, and he tells us a story about a time he was a real estate photographer, and he believes he came in contact with a serial killer.
Have you ever heard somebody say that everybody will meet a serial killer at least one time in their life? I don't know if that's true or not, but here's my story about how I think I actually did meet a serial killer. Forewarning, this is a little creepy and it's a bit of a long story. So back in 2019 to 2022, I did real estate photography, mainly in Cincinnati, but kind of all over Ohio. One day I got a call about a job where the realtor told me that the daughter of the homeowner who had passed was going to let me into this house because she had the keys. No big deal, very normal. So I show up to the house on my motorcycle because that's how I roll. But when I show up, it's not a woman waiting for me, it's a guy. He's a little bit short, kind of pudgy, balding on top. I said, "Hey, are you the person that's supposed to let me into the house?" And he says, "Yes." I said, "Are you the husband of the woman that was supposed to let me in?" He says, "No, I'm a friend of the daughter whose mom lived in this house," which is very weird, but whatever, he had the keys. So we go inside, and this guy's giving me weird vibes immediately, but I chalk it up to maybe he's got a touch of the tism. I'm not going to judge him. Here's where the red flags start, though. When I started shooting, he kept walking closer and closer and closer to me, following me into every single room in the house. I repeatedly had to tell him to give me space so he wouldn't be in reflections and so he wouldn't bother me, but he wouldn't listen and kept getting closer and closer and closer. Now, I could have just packed up my stuff and left, or I could have finished shooting really quick so I could get paid, and I chose to finish shooting. So I rushed through all the photos and I tell him, "Hey, I'm done inside, I'm gonna shoot outside the house, and then after that, I'll be out of your hair." But then he says, "You forgot about the basement here." I said, "I didn't know that there was a basement. Is it finished? Because we don't usually take photos unless it's a finished basement." And he says, "No, but I would like you to take photos of it anyways because my friend of the friend told me that she wants photos of the basement." I thought that was kind of weird, but whatever. I don't want to argue with this guy. I just want to get this stuff done. So I'll go down, take 30 seconds to take one photo of the basement, and then I will leave. He shows me where the basement is, and I start to walk down the stairs, and I hear him following directly behind me, like one step behind my foot. So I stop midway down and I turn around and say, "Can you not follow me down here? Because I'm going to take one photo of the whole basement and I don't want you in the background." And he says, I would like to come in the basement as well. We don't move for a second. I'm staring at him, he's staring at me. We're both standing in the middle of this staircase and he has his hand behind his back. So I tell him, I'm not going to take photos of this basement. Please move out of the way. He moves, but he doesn't get out of the basement. He just slowly pushes himself up against the wall, so I have to walk right next to him to leave. So at this point, I figure this guy's either trying to rob me, kill me, or be romantic with me, and I don't want any three of those things to happen. So I push past him kind of quickly so he doesn't have time to react, and I grab my gear and I immediately walk outside. And he follows me and says, I would really like you to take a picture of the basement, please. And I said, no, I am not going to do that. And he gets really angry. He starts to shake a little bit. His fists are balled up. His brow is sweating slightly. His lips are pursed. But I don't care because I don't want to deal with this guy anymore. So I take a couple photos of the front of the house and I start packing up my gear to leave. He goes back inside. So I decide, whatever, I'm not going to talk to this guy anymore. It's not a big deal. As I'm packing up my stuff, I realize that I'm missing my lens cap. And no, I don't mean a lens cap like this. I mean one that's really big and looks like a thermos. It looks like this right here. It is not a small lens cap at all. It's about the size of a cup. I realize I left it inside the house somewhere, so I have to go back and talk to this guy. So I walk up to the house and I knock on the door and he answers immediately like he was waiting for me. But his demeanor is completely different. He's no longer angry. He's not frustrated. In fact, he's even nicer than he was when I first showed up. So I tell him, hey, I left my lens cap in here. Can I come in and just walk through really quick to see if I left it on a counter? And he goes, no problem. I know I'm going to find this immediately because it's a pretty big lens cap and this is an empty house with a couple tables, so it's not like it's lost in clutter or anything like that. But I don't find it. I looked in every single room, on top of tables, underneath tables, next to them. There was no lens cap in this house. Now, he stayed in the living room by the front door. He didn't follow me into any of these rooms. So I walk back to the living room and I say, hey, did you see this lens cap? It looks like this. I can't find it anywhere. He looks at me and he says, I think you might have left it in the basement. Nope, I didn't, because I didn't go down in the basement. I walked halfway down and I turned around and came right back up. I looked at him and I said, nope, I definitely didn't leave it in the basement. And he says, I think you left it in the basement. I didn't say a word to him. I turned around like I was still looking, walked out the back door, got on my motorcycle, and left. Here's the craziest thing about the entire situation. I get done shooting this place, I'm editing the photos, and I get a call from the realtor. They're like, hey, why didn't you shoot this house? This lady's waiting on you. Why didn't you show up? I said, what are you talking about? I'm looking at the photos that I just took right now. How is that possible? She said nobody showed up. She's been waiting on you. Well, she didn't let me in. It was the guy. It was her friend of the friend or whatever. Friend of a friend? What are you talking about? No one knew who this guy was. The homeowner's daughter was really confused. She's like, I didn't tell anybody to let you in. I didn't have a friend of a friend hold a key for you. What is going on right now? And they never found out who it was. To this day, no idea who let me in the house. By the way, there was a dismembered body found in Cincinnati in 2023, and a bunch of people speculated it was a serial killer, but Cincinnati keeps saying that's not the case.
Again, with this story, I think it can go both ways. It could absolutely have been a person, but it also could have been a spirit. I mean, I think usually something paranormal is probably better than a crazy human, but in this instance especially, I think the paranormal option is much better. Obviously, he made it out safe and sound with just, a story to tell in the end. It makes me wonder how a serial killer, if it was a real person, could have gotten a key to the house. Whereas, if it were something supernatural, obviously it would make sense that they, probably don't need a key or, can unlock locks themselves. However they do that. And it makes me wonder what was so special about the basement. Obviously, if it was a serial killer, it appears that was his goal, was to get him to go down to the basement to unfortunately do something horrible to him. However, if it was a spirit, I wonder why he wanted him to go into the basement so badly. Was there something down there that he needed to find? Something that the owner wasn't expecting to be found because he wasn't supposed to go down there to take photos? Was it trying to show him something like that? Or, I don't know, was it just a creepy spirit? Was it trying to trick him into, a frightening experience in the basement? I don't know, but I'm so fascinated by the story. I love it, but it also makes me so incredibly uncomfortable. I think just basements in general kind of freak me out, but the idea of a stranger, potential serial killer, potential spirit trying to lure you into a basement and being that forceful and convincing you, it's frightening, to say the least. So this one was a really good one and left me with lots of questions and thoughts. Our next TikTok is by the user HillDog22. She is a caregiver for an older woman who is bedridden, but she says that she hears something walking around at night. So she sets up her iPad to see if she can catch anything. And what she does is unbelievable.
Good night, Miss Patty. Miss Patty?
This whole time I was like so scared, waiting for something to like jump out and like scare the bejesus out of me, and it was very, very frightening, but thankfully it just like kind of floated by the camera. It's so dark, it's like hard to tell what it actually is. It very well could be the poster, you know, pretending to be something for a video, but it also could have been something paranormal. There's really honestly no way to know, but I think it is so, so creepy how you could just hear the 2.5 Men theme song in the background and it's just like pitch black and something floats across the screen. I think it's such a creepy one, and whether it's real or not, it's really a good video to kind of get you on the edge of your seat and get your heart pounding a bit. Our next TikTok is by the user RAXHAEL1. She shares with us that one day she's not feeling well, so she's on her way to the ER to get diagnosed with whatever she's sick with. And she decides to take a shortcut, which proves to be a huge mistake.
Just because it's daytime doesn't mean scary shit can't happen. I'm gonna tell you guys a story about what happened to me today. So, get comfy, get cozy, and maybe grab a snack. I don't know. Where to start? Where shall I start? Let's see. Give me a second. Okay, so we'll just start from literally the beginning. Set the scene. I'm driving, obviously. I'm driving, and I'm going to ER because I'm sick, and I'm convinced it's either strep or sinus infection. I don't really know. So the way that I took to go to said ER is a back way. And I don't usually take this way unless, you know, I want to get there quicker. But in order to get there quicker, the roads are a wee bit scarier. And by scarier, I mean it's lots of forest. Now, I live in Pennsylvania, so, you know, there's things in the woods. Now, I can't exactly tell you what this thing was because just hold on. So I'm driving and I pull up and there's this really, really old abandoned barn. I'll show you at the end of the video. I'll go back down that road just for you guys. It's this really old, like, broken down, tattered barn, and I like nobody has used it in years. And just by looking at it, it looks really fucking creepy. Like, it's very scary. So I come to a dead stop, and I can't figure out why. I didn't stop. There's no stop sign. Not where I was, anyway. It was on the other side of the road. My car stops. Shuts itself off. Now, my car is a 2019. It's fairly new. It doesn't have problems like this, okay? Like, it's never had a problem other than, I think, one time, and that was because I needed an oil change. So, there's no reason my car should be slowly coming to a dead stop and then just shut off. So, at this point, I'm not really, like, freaked out. I'm just like, what the hell? Why is my car stopping? And then I look over, and I don't see anything. I'm looking at this barn. My stomach feels like it just fell through my ass crack. Like, I got so nauseous. Granted, I'm sick, so again, I really didn't think anything of it. But I got so sick to my stomach. Like, I felt like I was gonna throw up. And I couldn't figure out why. I was like, maybe I'm hungry, but no, I ate before I left, so that makes no sense. So I'm sick to my stomach, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, okay, either I'm gonna throw up, or I'm being crazy, right? So I take a minute, and I just sit there, like, breathe through the pain, and then I hear on the back of my car, and like a dumbass, I turn around, there's nothing there. Like an even bigger dumbass, I roll my windows down. And if you know, you know what I'm about to say. There was no wind. There was no bird noises. There was no animal noises. There was no leaf noises. So I immediately roll my windows up. Try to start my car. It sputters for a second and then it turns back on. I turn my head back to where the barn is, and for a split second, like, there and gone, the little hole that is in the bottom of the barn was solid black. Oh, like solid. I think I just itched myself. I think that's what that was. I scared myself for a second there. No, it was solid black. Pitch black, like a cloud of black. And 9 times out of 10, you can see whatever is inside of that barn. Any time I've driven past it, you can see what is inside that barn. But every time I drive past that damn barn, I get an eerie, creepy, sick feeling. And I can't figure out what it is. Now, mind you, this barn is from like the late 1800s, maybe, I think. Something like that. Like, it was solid black. Solid pitch black. And as I turned, that's what I did. I, looked at it, turned back, looked back. Gone. Everything was fine. Everything was normal. So I started my car and I zoomed off. Sick feeling went away. All the icky, all the nasty feeling, gone. But that's not the end of this story. So I'm processing everything that just happened. I'm driving to ER. I'm only like 10 minutes away at this point. I get to ER. I'm okay. Still kind of just back in my mind thinking about it, you know? ER is already a really stupid place to be because it's always overly busy and they take their sweet time and you're there for hours. But I didn't care. I walk in, it's out the ass with people. Like, there's 2 waiting rooms full. So I'm like, great. Fantastic. I was like, whatever. I need to be seen. Right? Big deal. I sit down after checking in, and within 5 minutes of me sitting down, a woman behind me drops, hits the ground. I'm so serious. This woman, unalived, behind me. So I'm sitting there, there's blood from her head hitting the ground. She didn't unalive herself, she just... You get where I'm going with that? There's blood everywhere, and everyone is told to put their phones away as, 7 security guards come running up, and, 4 nurses, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like... it's still... Ooh. And then, this whole time that this is all going on, from the moment I walked in, there is an older woman in the ER screaming, repetitively screaming over and over and over and over and over, loud. And it's not just no, it's a full-blown yell. So I'm already, my head's already pounding, and you know what, whatever, everybody has their problems. It's not my place to judge. This woman bites the person that's with her to the point that they are spewing blood. I have never left a place so fucking fast in my life. What? It is Friday. It is 1:30 on a Friday. No thanks. So needless to say, I will be going home and I will be going to bed. I'm done. No thank you. I'm done. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that story time because I didn't. But love y'all.
Now, I don't know how much I think that the whole situation at the ER was actually connected to the barn. I think there are unfortunately a lot of crazy things that happen at the ER these days because everything's kind of understaffed and everyone's overwhelmed. So that was probably just a very unfortunate coincidence that someone was incredibly sick and wasn't able to be seen in time. However, the part about the barn definitely is cause for concern. I think one thing is never good when someone is telling a spooky story and then they lead with the fact that they decided to take a shortcut. Usually that means that they're going to come across something that they should not have, which in this case is the barn. I think it's crazy that like her car just kind of breaks, and obviously it wasn't actually broken because she was able to then, you know, pull away and leave. But the fact that her car just like stops working for a period of time and she's stuck near the barn. And then on top of the fact that she says that she swears she saw something in the hole at the bottom of the barn. Was it something watching her? Was it an entity that caused her car to break down? You know, was it trying to mess with her, or was it trying to trap her there so it could do her harm? Thankfully, she obviously got away, and I'm assuming at this point, you know, is probably not sick anymore because this was posted quite a while ago. But the whole situation in itself is frightening, especially the fact that, you know, you're already not feeling well, you're not at your top amount of strength, and you're faced with this scary kind of fight or flight situation. It has to be incredibly draining on top of the sickness that is already there. And it makes me wonder if that is the reason why she may have been a target for whatever entity this was a success. Our next 5 TikToks are from the user Dave the Bearded Menace. I recently came across him and shared him in a previous video. He has a lot of really great ghost stories from his haunted childhood home. In this first TikTok I'm going to show you, he shares a story about his friend witnessing an old woman staring at him from the window inside the house.
I grew up in a haunted house, and these are my stories. So I had a best friend named Lewis back in high school, and we were pretty much inseparable back in the day. I'd always go over to his house, he'd come over to my house. We had fridge rating rules or permissions. I could raid his fridge, he could raid my fridge, and he was a really, really good buddy. And he always came to my house after school. Like, he would ride his bike up to my house, and then we would do shenanigans for like the rest of the night, and he would ride his bike back home. So I was maybe a junior, and my mom and I are coming home, and we see Lewis just like chilling at the front of the driveway, like outside of the yard, just hanging out there, which is not Lewis's thing to do. So we pull up, and he just stayed at the driveway. He just would not come back into the yard. So I walk up to him like, "Hey man, what's going on?" Now, to keep in mind, Lewis always got to the house first, just because we have to pick up my nephew and other stuff before we got to my house. So he'd always ride there first, wait for me, and then I'd get my bike and we'd go do shenanigans for the rest of the afternoon. So he's there, and he's just got like this like look on his face, and he's almost pale. So I'm like, "Lewis, what's going on?" And he's like, "Dude, I got here early, like I usually do, and I was riding my bike, you know, just in circles in your driveway, like I normally do. And then I looked up into your bedroom window on the second floor." Now remember, guys, this is the same room my sister saw the old woman. So he goes, "I looked up onto the second floor, and I see like this old lady just staring at me from the second floor, just staring down at me while I'm on my bike." So he says to me, he's like, she was like pressed up against the window, like both hands, and her forehead was like on the window, and she's looking down at me. And I'm staring at her because I don't recognize it. I don't recognize who she is. And then the next thing I know, while I'm looking at her, she kind of like backs away from the window. But as she backs away, she almost like disappears, dematerializes, or whatever you want to call it. At this time, like most of my friends in high school, Lewis didn't know the place was haunted. He knew nothing about anything that happened at the house. I don't think I ever told anyone back in high school because, you know, people always think you're crazy. So I'm looking at him like, are you serious? And he goes, "Yeah, like she was looking down at me, pressed against the window, and all of a sudden she just pushed off and dematerialized back into the house." So I asked him like, "Hey, do you wanna go inside?" He goes, "Nah, I'm good. I just wanted to wait until there was someone else here before I rode home because I'm afraid to ride home. Can you ride home with me?" So I rode home with Lewis, and he barely said a word the entire time back home. And then I rode back, and that was that. Lewis, we still hung out a lot, but Lewis never came over to the house again. I don't think he came over to the house until I was in college and I came home to visit. I was in community college and he came home to visit from the Army. And yeah, that day he never came back again. The entire time we were back in high school, never came back. That's my story for today, friends. Sorry I'm posting a little late. I'm in the office again because reasons. But I hope you enjoyed the story. I will try to post some stuff this weekend. I usually like to spend time with my family, so if I don't post anything this weekend, I do apologize. But, weekend is family time. Anyway, guys, that's it for me. As always, be easy, stay frosty, and may the force be with you. Peace.
That would be so scary to see, knowing that, one, no one's home, but also, everyone who should be in that house at any given point in time, and that is not one of them that you're seeing. That would scare me so bad. I honestly don't think I could have even stayed there to wait for him to actually show up. It would definitely be like a fight or flight. Like, you can't tell what you're gonna do until you're in that moment situation. And then feeling like you can never go back to your friend's house after that because you are so scared. That would be such an unfortunate situation. But on the other side of things, hearing that my friend saw that, I guess he's used to it because he's witnessed things like this before, and this old woman has appeared in a previous story that I've shared, so it seems like it is something that is kind of familiar already. But hearing that from your friend and then having to go into that house again, and I feel like I'd be looking around every corner expecting there to be an old woman popping out to scare me or hurt me or something. So that is pretty terrifying. In the next TikTok from him, he tells us a story about a different time a different friend was attacked by a spirit inside his house.
I grew up in a haunted house, and these are my stories. I used to have a really good friend that I grew up with by the name of Alberto. Our parents were together. Our brothers were best friends, so obviously him and I were best friends. And we did almost everything together growing up in the day. He's the guy who got me to Gundams and all this other stuff and that. So anyway, I digress. So for whatever reason, whatever was in the house used to love to pick on him quite often, especially when he stayed over. And it would be he would hear sounds middle of the night, or he would feel like something touching him or poking him or whatever. Whenever he stayed over, things would happen. One night, I was maybe 15 or 16. I think it was around this time frame because I was already sleeping upstairs. And Alberto was unfortunately sleeping in the living room on our old futon. And when I say unfortunately, I say that because a lot of activity would sometimes happen in the living room. It was centered around there. And he said he woke up around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and he felt like someone jumped on him in the bed, in the futon, and was holding him down, trying to suffocate him. Now it sounds like it could have been a night terror. I used to get those a lot. However, Alberto, being the kind of kid he was a fighter. So he fought back, and he said he swung in the air and his fists collided with something in the middle of the air. Baby Menace has words to say. But his fist collided with something in midair while he was trying to fight whatever this thing was off. So he, fights this thing off. He gets off of the futon and he runs upstairs to wake me up and tell me what happened. And I think we're the only ones in the house at the time. I can't remember. But anywho, I looked at his hands and his fists, and they were red. He did collide with something. And I think if I remember correctly, he had a cut on one of his bigger knuckles, on the index and middle finger. So he definitely collided with something when he hit it. So being the logical kid I was, we both went downstairs, and we tried to look for anything he may have hit by accident while he was being attacked by this thing. Now, if he was laying in the middle of the futon, there's literally nothing he could have reached that he could have hit or struck that would have caused the little bit amount of damage that was on his knuckles. If he was laying on the side of the futon, there was really, again, nothing he could have hit. This was an old school futon, so the armrests were super, super thick. You could sleep on the armrest. You could use the armrest as a pillow. So he couldn't hit that because it was all cushioned up, like, to the nth degree. Now, then we thought, okay, maybe he was sleepwalking, possibly. There was, like, a brick facade where the fireplace was, near, like, kind of close to the futon. But he still would have had to have walked up, gotten out of the futon, walked up to it, and struck it. And the type of damage that was on his knuckles looked more like he hit a person, like a person's face, not the brick wall. And he woke up in the bed, still swinging on the bed. So he hit something while he was laying there, but what did we hit? We never figured it out. We tried real hard to try to reproduce what he could have hit. We even started punching the futon, like, itself, and nothing. We even figured, maybe he got into, like, a ground and pound, like, position and was punching at the mattress. Sorry, my little baby menace kicked my hand right there. Maybe he was punching down at the mattress. Still wouldn't have caused the same amount of damage that was on his knuckles, on both knuckles. Nothing was really exposed. Like, there was really no metal exposed on this futon. So it wasn't that. So we're trying to figure out what the hell he hit. No walls had, like, any knuckle prints or nothing. And again, it's possible he could have hit the brick wall, but the type of damage that was on his knuckles looked like he hit a person, something that was, like, soft that had bend to it, not a brick wall. So what did he hit? Friends, that's my story for today. I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for all the comments and likes and follows. I'm actually almost to 20,000 followers, which is like a holy shit moment. Excuse my language, baby menace. And maybe if you made it this far, maybe give me another thumbs up. No, actually, no. Scratch that. If I get to 20,000 followers, which it seems like I'm going to very soon, I do live stream. I have a Twitch channel. Plenty of people have been bringing it up in the comments. I think I'm going to download and install and stream Phasmophobia. I've never played it. I'm being dead serious. I've never played the game. We'll make an event for it, like on a Friday, like Friday Night Frights or whatever. I'm not sure yet. But yeah, when we reach 20,000 followers, I will live stream Phasmophobia. Let me know what you think. But that's it for me, friends. As always, be easy, stay frosty, and may the force be with you. Peace.
I'd be so afraid to go over to that friend's house if it's known that, like, all these other people are witnessing that. I would not be staying the night. I don't know how you could do that. I honestly had such a hard time staying the night at people's houses when I was a kid because I was convinced that other people's houses were haunted or spooky just because I wasn't as familiar with them as I was my own house. So sleeping in a house that is actually known to be haunted and not just like a little spooky to me for sure would be a no-go for me. But the part I think is the most interesting is the fact that he literally has evidence of hitting something on his own hands, but where he was sleeping, he wouldn't have come in contact with anything unless there actually was something on top of him trying to strangle him. In the next TikTok, he tells us about a time when his wife first started visiting his house. One night, she saw what appeared to be an old woman entering the bathroom and mistook it for his mom, later to find out that it was not her.
I grew up in a haunted house, and these are my stories. So Mrs. Menace was one time hanging out in the living room of the old house. This is before we got married. And I forgot what I was doing. I think I was either upstairs or she got there before I did, before I got back to work. But it was later in the evening, and she was, just hanging out in the living room. My mom was in her bedroom, and she was just chilling on the couch doing whatever she does back in those days when we were first dating. So she's looking down her phone, the early days of Facebook and Instagram. And when she looked up into the hallway, she said she saw like an old woman hobbling past like the hallway. So best I can put it, my mom's room is here. Here's the hallway, and then it goes into the bathroom. She just saw like old woman just kind of hobble along. And the way she described it as like, an older woman like wearing like a nightgown or something, and she was kind of like hunched over and walking through the hallway. So Mrs. Menace was like, oh, must be Dave's mom. She's in the bedroom watching TV, watching her stories. She's a little older. She's in her 70s. Like, maybe that's who I saw, right? So after some time passed, Jen really had to use the bathroom. She's like, all right, well, let me go knock on the door, let her know that I need to use the bathroom. So Jen walks to the bathroom, goes down the hallway, and then realizes the bathroom door is wide open. There's no one in there. So she's like, I didn't see, Dave's mom come out. That is really, really, really weird. Whatever. She uses the bathroom, goes back to sit down, and does her thing, right? So now I get home maybe a couple minutes later after this all happened. And Mrs. Menace is like, all right, I'm going to go upstairs. I'll see you when you're done doing your thing, whatever. So she goes upstairs. I go to use the bathroom. And my mom comes out of the bedroom. And she was like, hey, I just saw Jen go use the bathroom not too long ago. I'm like, yeah, that's what people do. And she goes, no, I saw her go use the bathroom and there was an old woman walking right behind her wearing a nightgown. I didn't hear about what Jen saw at this point. She didn't tell me anything yet. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then my mom goes, yeah. And as Jen walked out of the bathroom, I saw the old woman following her. So I'm like, oh, okay, cool. So, we follow the whole Latino. Did I see something? No, you didn't. And we didn't tell Mrs. Menace about it at all. Flash forward about a year or two later, and Mrs. Menace tells me about what she saw that night. And I'm like, funny story. My mom saw something similar with you. That's my story for today, friends. Hope you enjoyed it. Please excuse the, professional look. They have me in the office again today. Sooner or later, they're going to make me do full-time in the office, which sucks, but it is what it is. Anyway, friends, hope you enjoyed the story. I probably won't be able to post much this weekend, so everyone enjoy their weekend, have fun, visit family, do the things that make you happy, and I will see you on Monday for another personal ghost story. As always, my friends, be easy, stay frosty, and may the force be with you. Peace.
This old woman definitely seems to be a very reoccurring character in this house, and it makes me wonder if it is in fact an old woman or something more nefarious. But I do really appreciate the fact that he just kind of brushed the whole thing off, even though he later found out the truth about what happened and realized it was paranormal. He didn't tell her for quite a long time afterwards as to not freak her out. I honestly kind of appreciate that because that would make me feel a whole lot better being there, not knowing about it until after the fact. But I think it's so interesting that he knew this whole time that that was a paranormal occurrence because he had two different versions of the exact same story from two separate people witnessing the same paranormal event from their own viewpoints. In the next TikTok I'm going to show you, he just gives us a quick little photo tour of his house and shows it off, which I think is important to include to kind of help you visualize everything a little bit better.
I grew up in a haunted house, and these are my stories. So I've been asked by a lot of y'all to post a photo of the house. So I had to really, because the house looks completely different today than what it looked like when we lived there. So I had to really dig deep into external hard drives and whatnot to find the photo. And well, here it is. So here is the front of the house. The house looks, like I said, the house looks much different today than it did when we lived there. It's an old photo, maybe from 2018, I want to say, maybe 2019. But that's the front of the house. Hope it lives up to your spooky expectations. Here's the kitchen. Here's the bathroom where my friend Maggie experienced something. The story is definitely in my personal stories. This was my brother's old room when we first moved there. That's the room where I heard the mimic of his voice saying, "Hey, what are you doing?" when he was still in the army. This is also the room my nephew would stay in every now and then, where he said he would see the imp talking to him in the evening. Up here is in the second floor. This used to be my brother's room when I was in high school because we moved upstairs. We did renovations up here so we can basically sleep there. That was my brother's room, and here is where my room used to be. This is also where my sister saw the old woman, and also the window where my friend Lewis saw the old woman pressed against the glass. Breezeway and garage driveway here where Lewis was chilling that one day as well. Here's the side of the house. Here's the window that Lewis saw the old woman. And again, this is my bedroom, and then became, well, it was my sister's bedroom, then became my bedroom, and this is where the old woman thing was seen and all that good stuff. After my brother moved out, I ended up taking the entire second floor as my own bedroom / loft area. Because again, we were poor and I really couldn't afford moving out at the time. And yeah, that's the house in a nutshell. Oh yeah, and the driveway where Lewis would ride his bike and he saw the thing up there. And when we came home, he was basically out here where this car is, just out chilling outside because he didn't want to be next to the house. So that's the house, friends. I hope it, like I said, hope it lives up to your spooky idea of what it looked like. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer them throughout the day via video stuff, depending on the answer. But that's the house. It looks, the investors who bought it after us, it turned into college housing, completely renovated it, and they expanded the second floor. So it looks nothing like it used to. It's even a different color now. And when we did renovations, that's when stuff got kicked up in the house. So I am dying to know what type of stuff they saw when they renovated. Because again, they expanded the entire second floor. All we did was put up drywall and painted it. So I can't even fathom the type of demonic portal hell shit they may have seen when they expanded the second floor. Because I even think they took down the chimney. Like the chimney was completely removed as well. But that's the story for today, friends. Hope you enjoyed it. I will be answering any questions you got with whatever I can. But that's it for today. And before I forget, big shout out to my buddy Scotty. He actually commented on the video about the thing we experienced when he was over, when he didn't believe in the ghosts and stuff. And he even dropped some knowledge that I didn't even know about he did in the house, that after seeing the thing he saw, or not seeing it, but experiencing what he experienced. But check that out. It's going to be under the story Scotty. And again, I did say, he did comment, he responded to a comment to one of the followers. So check that out and let me know what you think. Again, guys, that's it for me. As always, be easy, stay frosty, and may the force be with you. Peace.
And then the fifth and final TikTok I'm going to show you from Dave in this video. He tells us about an entity that his wife would frequently interact with inside the house before she realized that it was probably not such a good spirit.
I grew up in a haunted house, and these are my stories. When my wife and I first started dating, she would come to the house and she would swear she felt like she was being watched every single time. Occasionally she would hear the mimic or something else, and I would do the occasional, you didn't hear nothing, don't worry about it, because I didn't want her to get scared or give whatever it was any type of energy. When she moved in, things kind of were different. She, I guess, got assigned an entity. I don't know, but like whatever was in the house, it kind of knew she was there to stay, and it decided to like watch her every now and then. So she would see like at the corner of her eye, like this thing almost like run away from her whenever she would turn the corner. She would only see it like either in the daytime or when she was by herself in the house. So she wasn't terrified of it. She wasn't scared because she's like, oh, whatever it is, it's running away. And she assumed it could have been, the spirit of a child because it was tiny from how she described it. And whenever it would turn the corner, she would see like either the wisp of a dress or a long coat, and it looked like it was wearing boots. So she named it Quick Boots. Keep in mind, I never knew about this thing at all until we moved out. Had I known about it, I don't know what I would have said or done, but like she was kind of, I guess, giving it energy. And I love my wife, don't get me wrong, but she's definitely that person that would suggest everyone split up during a horror movie. You know what I mean? So she wasn't scared of it because she felt like it was keeping her company. So she'd be alone in the house in the day and she would hear something, or she would hear like the sound of like nice shoes, like on the what's it called, linoleum. And she would say things like, oh, good morning, Quick Boots. How you doing, Quick Boots? Are you having a good day, Quick Boots? And she would talk to it. Obviously, it wouldn't talk back. One morning, she was by herself in the house. I had to do an early day at work, and so did my mom. And she went into the kitchen to make coffee. While in the kitchen, she says she felt it like roll up behind her. and just stand behind her. And she knew it was this quick boots thing. And by the way, that sound you're hearing is my daughter. So just to let you guys know, a lot of the sounds you hear in this are my daughter. But anyway, she said while making coffee, "Good morning, Quick Boots. Would you like some coffee?" And after saying, she heard in her ear like a hiss, and it go, "Yes." And then she heard a knock on the door 3 times, like on the boiler door. And she decided to like leave the house, and she never spoke to it ever again. Originally, wasn't scared of it because she felt like it was a child, or just, being mischievous like a child. But once it answered her and she could hear the disembodied voice in her ear, she was like, never again. And she never ever spoke about it or talked about it ever again until we moved into our apartment in our downtown area.
I really do think in any case it is 100% best to just not engage and not interact, no matter how good you may think something is. I think it is best to just give anything no energy. Mind your own business, pretend you didn't hear anything, and move on with your day, because you never know what kind of thing you're feeding into. Our next TikTok is from the user Do You Believe Too? In this video, a man is calling up the stairs to see if his roommate is home, and you can clearly hear something walking about, but it is not the person he was expecting.
Shit. Steve, are you home, bro? Hello? What the fuck? Hello? 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 Fuck!
Hearing something like that so clearly, it's like, it's not even a question that those are footsteps and something is wandering around up there, but it is not the person it should be. I think in that situation, I would probably assume it was a real person, but the fact that it can really go both ways until you actually physically see a person, it's like you have 2 things to worry about. You need to worry about an entity in your house or an actual intruder who could potentially, charge at you with a weapon or something like that. And it makes things even scarier because it's like you don't know what plane of existence you are dealing with. Anytime I see videos of someone that's like home alone and there's very obvious like noises or activity, I cannot get enough of them, but it also scares me to no end because it is truly frightening to be home alone and hear things that you should not. Our next TikTok is by the user Hey It's Bells, and she shows us a very scary paranormal photo that she caught from a night out with girls at Waffle House.
If you don't believe in ghosts, stop what you're doing because I guarantee I will change your mind before the end of this video. Behind me is a picture that I took in 2010, and in my opinion, it is one of the best paranormal photos ever taken. If anyone else had taken this picture, I truly would have never believed that it was not photoshopped. I would be convinced that it was fake and that the person who took it was a liar. So the only thing that you have to go by is my word, but I promise you, you are not expecting what I'm about to show you. So to set the scene, back in 2010, this is when we would carry digital cameras around and take pictures and then upload them to our computer and then Facebook. Some friends and I went to Waffle House late at night, and whenever we left, we all ran into the car and locked one of our friends out. She then jumped on the windshield to keep us from driving away. I thought it was funny, so I took a picture of it. As you can see, this is the photo. Right here on the passenger seat is my friend Lindsay. She has blonde hair. This is all relevant, I promise. Right here in the shotgun seat is my friend Valerie. She had brown hair. And then I'm sitting in the very back in the middle with my brown hair. And then you can see the outline of our friend Brittany. She had jumped on the windshield. See anything weird? Probably not yet, because I never noticed it until I posted the picture on Facebook and someone called something very creepy out. So now I'm going to turn your attention to the rear view mirror. You can see the top of my friend Lindsay's head, her strawberry blonde hair, as she was turned to the side looking at my friend and laughing. Now I'm going to zoom in and I want you to take a closer look. Here we are zoomed in. Again, you can see her head right here, the whole outline. You can even see her little wispy stray hairs. Now look directly behind her head. and tell me who is the man sitting behind her with the blonde hair, the defined brow bone, the eye divot, and the nose. I was sitting in the back seat in the middle with no one else back there. And here it is outlined if you're having trouble seeing it. Again, this picture is 14 years old, and at this point, I have literally shown it to hundreds of people, and I wouldn't be surprised if thousands have seen it. This has truly become a picture that so many of my friends and family know about, and they'll share it with their friends and family. It's been passed around a lot. It's been sent into paranormal investigators. I have never been able to get a logical explanation as to what it is that we're looking at. We've even put the picture in Photoshop to play around with the saturation and lighting to see if it was just a trick with our brains and tried to look at it a different way. One time a paranormal investigator said this was simply the headrest of the seat in the car. I want to know what car headrest looks like this because I ain't never seen one like that. It's crazy and I need someone to give me an explanation. 14 years later, this picture still gives me chills. It still creeps me out. And I think it is one of the coolest things that I've ever seen. If you like this, share it with someone you know and comment and give me your idea of what you think it could be or if you actually think it's a ghost. Happy Halloween.
Honestly, I think it kind of looks like Rue's head from Despicable Me. Like, the nose is kind of like pointed like that, and the bald head, I feel like it's like grew way before his time was photobombing. But honestly, I think it is so scary. I'm like trying to figure out how it could potentially be a headrest or something else, and I just really cannot figure it out. Like, to me, all I'm seeing is a man's head behind her head. I cannot make it out into anything else that would make sense for there to be in a car other than a man. And as the poster said, there was no one sitting next to her in that seat. I think another testament to the fact that it is a real photo is obviously it's a very, very old photo, but the fact that she says that she shares this around her family and is very well known is obviously not like a photo that she, just randomly took and decided that she was gonna try and make a TikTok. It's obviously something that she brought to TikTok because it's been talked about widely in her family and amongst her friends for years and years, and she decided to share it with us. And I am really, really glad she did because it really makes you wonder. So if you can figure out what it could possibly be behind her, let me know, but I genuinely cannot visualize it to be anything else other than a man's head. Our next TikTok is for the user Diana Love. She comes to us in this TikTok and tells us that she believes she's just experienced some paranormal activity. She cannot for the life of her figure out who closed her back door while she was out doing laundry.
Alright, y'all, so I think something paranormal just happened to me and my mind can't wrap around it because I'm actually really confused. I needed to put my clothes to dry and my clothes are outside drying in the garage. And I see my dog sitting on the couch outside, right there. It's really windy today, and I'm like, oh, she's sitting outside. Let me let her in. And mind you, she's a 5-pound Chihuahua, okay? We have a metal door to get out. So I open the door, and I say, Moo, get inside. And I start walking to the garage. And I get to the garage or whatever, and I start putting, the garage is there, I start putting all my clothes away, right? And when I come back to the freaking door, the door is completely shut like that. So I'm like, did somebody get home and lock me out, right? And I'm like, what the heck? So I open the door. I open the freaking door, and I'm like, where's my dog? I'm like, did I close the door on me or is someone home? So then I say, hello, nobody's home, just me and my son, and he's sleeping upstairs, and he's a 1-year-old. He cannot open or close that. So then I'm like, did I close it? And I'm like, no, because if I would have closed the door, I would have had to held it open for my dog to get inside, and I didn't. I literally pushed it open and started walking to the garage. So then I'm like, okay, maybe I closed it without even realizing it and never actually let the dog in. I start calling my dog. Her name's Moo, and I'm like, Moo. And she's inside the house. She's inside the house, and I'm like, what the? Who freaking closed this door? Because I know for a fact I didn't. And now I'm just trying to think of a logical explanation of how this door would have closed. And on top of that, why didn't I hear it close? When you close it, it makes a noise. So that thing had to be like slid shut quietly. I did not hear it at all. And I'm like really confused because I'm like, I didn't close it because I wanted my dog to go inside the house. So I legit just open it, walk to the garage, and when I come back, the door's completely closed. And mind you, my dog's only 5 pounds. She's a 5-pound Applehead Chihuahua. There's no way she could have moved this door.
I will point out that she does say that it was a very windy day. However, obviously, if it was windy, it would have made that really, really loud noise and slammed shut, and that for sure she would have noticed. I also don't know necessarily which direction the wind was going. There's a very real chance that the wind could have been blowing the door to stay open and wouldn't have pushed it closed. So without the context of like the direction of the wind versus how the door swings, it's kind of hard to judge that. But that is obviously a, obvious way to try and debunk it. Other than that, if this door doesn't just open and close on its own regularly, or doesn't, swing shut sometimes on its own, like this is a brand new occurrence, I think it is pretty scary. And I think it is really interesting that it's like only after the dog has just gotten back inside that the door then closes on itself. Because obviously we know a teeny tiny dog is not going to be able to close a door like that on its own, especially given the fact that it would have to close it from the outside, seemingly, which would like trap it outside. So I really don't have much of an explanation for that. I think it's kind of one of those situations where I would be standing there questioning myself for hours, wondering if I left the door open and trying to reason out how this could have happened. But I definitely think that, maybe there is something weird going on here. Our next TikTok is by user The Gay Glenn. And I will say that this one is a little bit on the sadder side, but it is absolutely fascinating to me and kind of heartwarming in a way, so I really did want to include it. This is footage showing what appears to be orbs entering and exiting the body of a woman who is currently in hospice and only a few hours away from passing away. I was kind of going back and forth about including this, but I think it is really, really fascinating, and magical is not the right word, but it feels very like beautiful to see this. Like I genuinely believe that those are spirits, flowing in and out of the room and keeping her company. As I've said in other videos, I believe that people who are in hospice and are near the end of their life are obviously closer to the other side, and they have the ability to communicate with people on the other side a little bit easier, and people just, come through to kind of help welcome them over in their transition. And I fully, fully believe that. And I think this is another kind of piece of evidence that has been caught on camera. I think it's really important to note that while the hospice nurse, that's the one sitting in the chair, the hospice nurse, when she is just sitting in the chair at the beginning of the video, you don't see anything flying around. So it's not like it's just a dusty room or anything like that, which I will say, also it being, a hospice room, there shouldn't really be large amounts of dust. It should be pretty sterile. But it's not until after the video has been going on for many, many seconds that we see things starting to float around. And it doesn't really flow in a typical dust pattern either. And you can also see kind of like trails of things, which to me is kind of shows a visual of like the way magic is kind of portrayed in like Disney movies or whatever. It feels more like it glides and kind of like dissolves a little bit, whereas it's not just like a normal dust blob. So to me, I fully believe that this video is showing energies and spirits kind of helping to guide this woman to the other side and be there in her final hours. And I think this is such a beautiful thing to have caught on camera. And again, like I said earlier in the video, it is amazing how many things we can now catch on camera due to the fact that we have the ability to have security cameras like most places. And so it is really amazing. And I'm sure it is comforting for this poster to have been able to see proof of the fact that her mother was not alone in her final hours. Our next two TikToks are by the user Auntie Tanby. In the first TikTok I'm going to show you, she shares with us a little bit of background on the haunted house she grew up in and shares with us a very terrifying experience that happens there.
So I used to live in a haunted house, and a lot of people don't believe me when I say that, but my mom and dad bought a house back in 1968. It was built in 1966 in New Jersey, and they were like the first owners of the house. So the neighborhood itself was supposedly built on top of a burial ground or an Indian burial ground, and they said a lot of activity was happening throughout the neighborhood, and a lot of the houses, when they used to talk to their neighbors, they shared a lot of the same stories. So my mom and dad also experienced a lot of things like mimics and poltergeists and things to that extent in this home, but they didn't want to move because it was a brand new home. My mom stopped sleeping in the bedroom with my dad for as long as I remember. And the reason why is because she didn't feel safe in that room. She didn't feel safe on that part of the house. So when I was brought into the picture, I have, I have 6 other siblings. I remember one night that I was in my mom and dad's room. I don't know why I was in there. My mom had just got home from work. She was OCD, so she was mopping. My dad was at work, and I was in their room for whatever reason. I was just playing with their stereo system. Behind the stereo system, there was a wall mirror, and I just remember playing at the stereo system, looking up, and my mom was standing behind me. I could see her in the mirror, but my mom wasn't wearing anything. And when I mean she wasn't wearing anything, I mean she was completely not wearing anything. So I turn around thinking this is weird as shit. And I look and my mom's not there. She's not behind me. So I turn back around to look in the mirror and she's still standing there. So I run as fast as I can out the room, hit my knee on our couch, start crying. My mom's like, don't go in there. That's why I don't go in there. The only person that slept in my room, in that room, was my dad. Nothing bothered him. There was another, night where our power went out for whatever reason. I think it was a bad storm. And my mom was telling us some stories that, trying to keep us busy, occupied. And we heard a crashing sound. It sounded like our ceiling fan in the kitchen had fallen out of the ceiling onto the floor. Glass went everywhere. So my dad comes out of his room that he was in. He's like, oh my God, like I got to clean this up. And my mom's like, yeah, well, watch your feet, don't walk in there with no shoes on. There's glass on the floor. So he goes to bend the corner to go look. He goes back in his room and he doesn't say anything. He closes the door. And my mom's like, are you going to clean up the glass? Are you going to clean it up? And he's like, I'm not finna go in there. So my mom's like, why aren't you going in there? So she gets up, she goes and looks in the kitchen and there's nothing on the floor. Nothing at all. We used to hear books slamming in the upstairs room. We all slept, like me, my mom, my brothers, all of us slept in the living room because we were so afraid of that house. My mom didn't want to move. My dad didn't want to move. They bought the house. They were trying to sell it. We used to hear books slamming, just like all throughout the night. You would hear, like, it sounded like someone was taking a textbook and just slamming it on the floor as hard as they could. Some nights we would hear in the kitchen, like someone was clanking pots and pans, spoons and forks. And my mom would say, don't look in the kitchen, just ignore it and go to bed, ignore it and go to bed. And she would say something to the extent of, God will protect us and, whatever's, I forgot what the sayings go, but she would say it and it'll eventually stop. But I don't play about that stuff. I have a lot of stories. And this went on for as long as I can remember in that house. I remember when we moved, I felt so at peace. It was still a little bit of a traumatic experience to try to sleep in the new home we moved into because we moved from Jersey to Georgia. But I'll never forget that. I'll never forget it.
Okay, first of all, it is really, really telling that her mom did not want to even sleep in that room, that she was willing to sleep in obviously a less comfortable place than sleep in that room because she felt there was that much negative energy in there. And then to hear a large crashing sound that was actually nothing. I mean, I don't know how you explain that. If you hear a large crashing sound, like at the very least, you'd think there'd be like maybe a dented cabinet or like, you know, a dented floor or something like that. Like obviously something had to be hit to make the noise, but nothing was wrong. Like they thought they were going to be seeing shattered glass all in the kitchen from the ceiling fan falling out. Nothing. Like there has to be a cause for a noise. Like noises don't just like happen without something causing them. So to me, it feels like it is I'd say, so to me, honestly, it feels kind of like a malicious spirit. It doesn't sound like it specifically harmed them, but it didn't seem to have good intentions either. It didn't really seem to coexist. It was constantly causing nuisances and making people uncomfortable, and I really don't think there was anything good about it. I'm gonna go ahead and play the second TikTok for you where she tells us another horrifying experience that happened at her house.
Okay, so I'm gonna say this, and this is gonna be it. But happy Halloween! It's Halloween, so I guess I'll tell this story. So one time we all wake up and there's maggots all over the floor in the living room, all over the floor in the kitchen, all over the floor in the laundry room. We had a huge laundry room, and I'm talking about, it was like 2 rooms long. It curved, like the laundry room curved, like you had to go around the corner to see the back of the laundry room. My dad never changed the light bulb back there, but we had like 2, so it was always dark back there. We had 2 chest freezers full of meat. And my mom assumed that because the maggots were on the floor, that one of the chest freezers must have went down. So she was screaming at the top. My mom hated worms. Anything that looked like a worm, get it away from her. So she starts spazzing out, whatever. My dad's at work, and she calls him, and she tells us, do not, come in the kitchen, wear shoes. There's maggots in the house. As a matter of fact, just go play outside. So we go play outside, whatever. My dad comes home. He pulls into the driveway. He's like, what the hell, how? And my mom's like, I don't know, because the deep freezer or the chest freezer wasn't, there was no indication that the freezer had went off or anything went down, because everything was, still froze the day before. So long story short, my dad, he scopes the scene. And he's like, yeah, there's maggots all in the laundry room. They're all in the laundry room. They're all in the garage. They're all in the kitchen. He was like, it has to be the freezer. It has to be the freezer. So he finally goes to the freezer and looks, and all the meat is still froze. Meat still froze. Nothing rotted. It didn't even smell like anything rotted. There wasn't any dead animals. We had a lot of, raccoons in the area, but there wasn't anything that could have indicated anything had died for maggots just to pop up out of nowhere. So my dad was like, all right, we'll all go. We'll get something to clean up with, whatever. My mom didn't want to leave us in the house, so we go to get some cleaning stuff. You know how we used to do back in the day. We all sat in the car. We waited for my parents forever. We come back to the house, and guess what's not there? Anybody want to guess? Yeah, they were gone. It's like it never happened. They disappeared. I don't know. I still don't know, because we walked around. There was residue. They were clearly there. They were clearly manifested into the floor and everything. But when we got back, they were gone. My mom didn't believe it. She checked everywhere. She was like, there's no fucking way possible. My dad was like, when my dad experienced things like that, he never commented on it. He acted like it didn't ever happen. So happy Halloween. Yeah.
I think this one is even more bizarre. The fact that there's just like bugs, like maggots showing up out of nowhere. And then, I'm sure if there was a legitimate infestation, it could probably go kind of quickly. I feel like a lot of times with bugs, things get out of hand, like before you even really have a chance to notice that there's something. Like it tends to go pretty quick, which is really annoying. But the fact that it happened so quickly, and then once they got things to clean it up and deal with it, also couldn't find the source, but once they went to go clean it up, gone, like no trace. Like that just doesn't happen. Like if you've ever had a bug problem, they don't just like go away. It's like bugs have the sole intention of annoying people and trying to ruin their day. Believe me, my apartment building unfortunately has an ant problem during the summer, and it feels like the ants personally have something against me. So it would not just like disappear that quick and painlessly. So like I've never heard anything like that before, other than like in a hallucination in like a scary movie, but it very clearly is not a hallucination because so many people were a witness to it. So I really don't have any explanation for that, and it just further brings me back around to it is not any kind of good spirit in that house, and it is something that is definitely dangerous, and I'm glad that they were able to get out of there. Our next TikTok is by the user Callie Lau. They show us some doorbell footage of what appears to be a spirit walking up to their house.
Because it's not fully dark yet.
I think this one maybe potentially could be a person with a little bit of a glitch, but I do think it is interesting how the figure seems to, again, like glide, and there seems to be like a trail of something coming off of the person. I think that's very interesting for a glitch. Normally when my doorbell camera glitches, it's like very, very choppy and not like a sliding kind of like almost ghostly animation to it. So I do think that it's really interesting. I think this goes both ways. If it is real and they did catch something on camera, I think it's really, really good footage, but also it definitely could be some kind of a glitch. So let me know what you think about this one. Our next TikTok is by the user Bui Bui. She tells us about a time she was staying over at her friend's house and she experiences some kind of crazy paranormal activity as a result of their spooky conversations that night.
Okay, scary story time. So I run into a lot of like scary paranormal things, and I'm going to be telling you guys a lot of the paranormal or freaky shit that happens to me. So this one time, I'm 16 years old. Me and my friend's little sister were sitting in the room, shooting the shit, talking. We're leaned up against the wall, our backs against the wall, sitting on the ground, and we're just talking about creepy stuff, like, why not? Ghosts, demons, and then we start talking about the Bible, and that results in talking about angels, and then that starts turning into our angels, aliens. After that, we started feeling like someone's watching us. Started scaring ourselves, which was great. That was like the point, but then I had to talk myself out of it because I was getting too scared. Her dog, Marley, she walks in. She's like she's a black lab chow chow, I think. She's pretty smart, and she's not old or anything. She's kind of young. She walks to the corner of her room, stares at it. There's no dresser, there's no bags, there's nothing hanging. She's staring at this corner that honestly looks like there's something dark in it. There's like something darker than the shadows in the room. In that corner, she's staring up, and this thing looks like it's like 6.5 feet, 7 feet tall, the way she's looking at it. Her back, she has a mohawk going on. She's growling, barking. She wants to attack this thing. She wants to eat it. And we're like, oh my God, Marley, stop. Marley, stop. She's looking at me. She's like, Bree, this isn't normal. Marley doesn't do anything like this. Like, she's not stupid. And I was like, oh yeah, I believe you. And I didn't want to tell her, like, oh, dogs can see see ghosts. And I didn't want to scare her. So she's like kind of scared and thinking like, what could this be? And I'm like, I know damn well what this is. And then next thing I know, we hear what sounds like wind or even electric. I don't know how to explain it. It's going woo, 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 woo. And I'm like, looking back at it now, I'm like, oh, that's a spaceship. But we see lights outside, and I'm like, oh, is that a snowplow? It's snowing outside. And I'm like, it has to be a snowplow. But these lights are not snowplow lights, but there's so many lights going out outside while this noise is happening, right? And then it feels like the house is vibrating like it's a damn earthquake. Feels like an earthquake, but then I'm like, wait, she's not saying anything. Maybe I'm having like a mini seizure. I'm like, oh no, this sucks. Like, I gotta wait it through. And then I look at her and I can see she's bouncing. I can see her chest bouncing. And I'm like, oh no. I was like, you feel that? You're shaking? oh, sorry, I don't know what happened. And then she's like, yeah, no, I feel it. It feels like an earthquake. And I'm like, oh my God. And the dog is still barking, mind you. So this is actually really fucking chaotic and scary. And then just like that, everything stops. Dog is out of the room like that. We don't see the dog walk out. The lights are gone. The shaking stops. And we just go, whoa. Like, we both realize, like, time skipped. We skipped time. Something weird happened. And then I look, because I could hear a door open, and it's her mom's door. And I can look down the hall, not down the hall, but like through her door, and I'm staring right at her mom's door that I'm seeing open, which kind of scares me. I'm already scared already. And even though it's her mom's door, and she comes in, and I'm watching her. I'm like, oh, we're going to get in so much trouble. We're being so loud. She comes in, just nothing on her face. She goes, the house is on fire. Oh my God. So my ass jumps up faster than science can determine. I've been in a fire. I'm absolutely traumatized. So my ass is going to put this fire out and get everyone out of this house. So I'm running through the house looking for this fire. It's not in her room because her room is pitch black. I'm walking past it. There's no light in this room. So I run through there. I'm looking at outlets. I'm looking at stove, oven, everywhere. And then, but when I'm running through the house, I see that the front door is open. But I'm looking for a fire right now. So that front door just right past my head. And then I'm running through, and then I come back to the front door. I'm like, what the hell? There is so much snow coming out of the front door. It's like maybe 2 feet of snow, and then like slowly like hill in, because it's like, I can't explain it. I think you understand what I mean though. And I'm like, that means that the door was open for a while. And that's why it's so cold in here. But when we woke up, I didn't realize that I felt cold right when I woke up. It is Wyoming, -30 degrees. You would feel if a door 10 steps away from you was open that whole time you're hanging out with your friend. And mind you, I walked past that front door to sit in that bedroom, which we were sitting in there for not too long before all this crazy shit happened. So I'm scooping snow back outside, and I shut the door and I lock it. And let me mind you, her mom, after she said the house is on fire, she turns around calmly and just goes back to bed while I'm frantically running through the house. Her sister kind of stands up a little bit. I think I wasn't paying too much attention to her because I was freaking out. And she like just sat back down, and I was like, what happened? And she's like, I think my mom's sleepwalking. And I'm like, yeah. Or she was possessed, because we're talking about demons and aliens and angels. And then I was like, wait, were we abducted? And then, so this whole time I'm thinking, like, I was abducted. My brain was washed. They came in through the front door. There was no footsteps, though. The front door was open, but there was no footsteps. Oh, wait. Yeah, there would be no footsteps if they just opened the door and walk in. And then walk out. And the snow's just billowing in. Oh my God, scary. Anyways, I'm looking back at it, doing research on what happens if you're abducted. Well, you end up sleepwalking right after being abducted. You're more likely to sleepwalk if you've been abducted. So, what, they came in, they brainwashed us, and they abducted her mom?
I don't really know what to make of this one. Honestly, it kind of sounds almost like an alien abduction to me. Like with the house shaking and there being lights, it kind of does sound alien abduction-y. But obviously no one was taken. Unless, there's the very convolutedness of like, someone's taken and they erase memory of the person, and like, highly unlikely. But it's very weird that this one doesn't really follow the stereotypical or common paranormal ghostly activity kind of signs. It does for sure to me feel more alien. Another thing to me is the fact that the door is left just wide open and no one seemed to notice it, even though it is the middle of winter, as well as the girl's mom seeming to be confused and claiming that there is a fire. That's like a whole lot of stuff happening all at the same time. If it's happening individually, you can be like, oh, that's a weird experience. But if it's happening all together, it's not really a coincidence. I really have no idea what happened that night. I do think obviously talking about things and, you know, maybe certain theories that they brought up gave energy to some things or kind of activated something. But I really don't know what it is. I've never heard anything like this specifically. And again, it does lean kind of more towards aliens than ghosts. So I really don't know. It seems like an absolutely insane thing to experience though. Our next TikTok is by the user Tati's Creepy Stories. She tells us a story about when she is in the ER ward during her shift and she witnesses a deceased man walking through the hallway.
So as most of you guys know, I used to work in a trauma center, night shift. I would work from 7:30 p.m. to 7 a.m. In that time, being that it was a trauma center, we would see a lot of fatalities and a lot of just horrific things. With that comes a lot of paranormal activity. The story that I'm about to share will forever be engraved in my mind. So the ER that I used to work at was split into 3 different sections. There was pod 1 and 2, pod 3, and pod 4. At night, pod 3 would always close down. So that section was always completely isolated. Being that I would work night shift, whenever it came time for lunch, I would want to get away from all the patients. So I would usually go sit in pod 3 and put on my little Netflix, put my headphones on, watch my movie, and eat my lunch. So when I go back there, it's completely dark. There's no one around me whatsoever. All of the rooms have been cleared. As I start to eat, I hear someone sneeze in one of the empty rooms. I kind of stood still for a little bit, trying to like rationalize what I just heard, but I decided to just ignore it and continue watching my show. Then as I look over to one of the empty rooms on this side, I see a man kind of poke his head out, look from side to side, and then just like start walking down the hallway. And I mean, this man is moving fast. Like his legs are not even moving. He's just kind of gliding down the hallway. He continues on to the end of the hallway and then I don't see him anymore. I get chills up and down my body, but again, I try to ignore it and just continue eating my food and watch my Netflix. After my lunch ends, I go over to one of my coworkers and I tell her what I saw, and she tells me that that's impossible because there's no one back there. Both of us go back to check because I'm like, I 100% know what I saw. So we go into the room that I saw this man poking his head out of. And when we open the curtains, we see that same man laying in bed. He had been deceased. He had passed away earlier that day. So what I saw obviously was not him. It was his spirit leaving his body. But his physical body was still laying in that bed, covered up. He was still even wearing like the same shirt that I saw him wearing. Like everything was exactly the same. So yeah, a lot of times when you pass away, it does take your soul a little bit to kind of leave your body.
I can't imagine how freaky it would be to like see the spirit walking around, not yet realizing that it's a spirit, and then realize that that is the exact same person that is no longer alive, that could not have been possibly walking around. Like just to make the connection that that is the same exact person would be so crazy. And I guess this kind of goes into part of the reason why I am so fascinated by the spirit world. It's like I personally am terrified of what happens when you die. Like I am so afraid to die. Sometimes I spiral because I'm afraid that it's truly nothingness. And I guess it doesn't matter because I wouldn't be aware that it's nothingness, but yet somehow that makes it worse. So I personally have a deep fascination in the spiritual side of things because I am afraid of what happens when you die myself. And I really don't know what I believe in. As well as, you know, just like it's interesting. But stories like this, it makes me feel good because I feel like it's kind of proof that, you know, our souls do exit our body and we continue on somewhere else. That it's not just like we die and then blackness and we have no idea what's happening. And again, like not that that really matters because you don't know that there's nothing, but like conscious me, thinking about future me, not being aware of anything, it's scary, really scary. So I really like this story in the sense that to me, it's like further evidence of the fact that we do go somewhere and we continue on even after our human bodies are no longer around. Obviously, regardless, no matter how much proof I get, it's not going to make me want to live any less of a life. I still want to live a very long time. But hearing stories like this definitely make me feel a little bit less scared of what is an inevitability for all of us. Our next TikTok is by the user Okay So. She tells us a story from when she was a child where she experienced some kind of entity that was frightening her younger sister at night.
So nobody likes to tell any ghost stories, spooky stories, whatever you call it, supernatural stories, and share like real stories like that or things that occurred to them, because nobody wants to feel like everybody thinks you're crazy. But I remember sharing a story one night at work, and everybody from all walks of life started sharing their own stories, and it turns out everybody's got a scary story. So I have two. There's one I don't talk about because it still terrifies me, because I know I would have died. But there's the first occurrence I don't mind sharing because it doesn't scare me as bad now. But it was a crazy event, but it's a shared experience. So I have a witness for this one. But if you like this story that I'm about to tell you, and you want to hear the other one, comment below and share your own stories if you have any. There was one night, my sister and I was about 18 or 19. She's 4 years older than me. And we both lived at home in Detroit, Michigan, in this older home. It was like 1 a.m. I was the only one up. Everybody else was upstairs asleep. And I heard my sister calling me really softly, which was already weird because we're a loud family. So it's like, why are you whispering? What is happening? But she was going, Reese, Reese. And I'm like, what? She goes, come here. Well, I'm downstairs, I'm watching Friends, and I didn't feel like getting up. I didn't respond to her, but I thought to myself in my head, like, I'll go in once it goes to commercial. Luckily for her, it went to commercial just then. So I was just like, okay. So I go to run up the stairs, like, just being silly, just kind of jogging up the stairs. Our bathroom was at the top of the stairs, and the light was on. And we usually leave the light on so that it could illuminate the hallway and the stairs. Our light was on, and I get to the top of the landing, and I jumped once I got on the landing, and I was like, okay, I'm here. And I looked down the hallway, which is not a long hallway, so the bathroom should have illuminated it, but the hallway was uber dark, like really dark. And I remember thinking, like, why is it so dark down there? But I'm still walking towards her door, and just as I get to the entryway to her bedroom door, which was across from mine, it was like, and her door was open, but just as I get to the entryway, it was like I felt a breeze, like something moved really fast past me. And it startled me because I remember I kind of like stepped back, and then I like put my back against the wall in the hallway, kind of like, what the heck was that? But I couldn't see. So I remember like reaching around behind me into her room and flipping the switch, hoping to see like, what the heck was that? And just as I did that, of course I don't see anything, but I like turn and like peeked in her room so I can be like, what's going on? As soon as I look at her, she's got the covers up to her chin, and she's like staring at the ceiling, shaking. And she's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. She's like, Reese? And I'm like, yeah. And she was like, she said she woke up and her room was pitch black, and she felt real uncomfortable. And she's like, why is it so dark? She started calling me thinking I was in bed across the hall. And she was like scared to get up because it was just a weird feeling. And she said she called me. I said, what? And she was like, come here. Well, she said about like a minute or two after she called me, she heard me say, here I am. And she's like, where are you? I can't see. Turn the light on. And just as she said that, she heard me down the hall go, okay, I'm here. Now, that might not scare you, but I can promise you, anybody in my community, usually we don't jive with that. Like, nah, dog. We woke my mother up. Ma, get the oil, start praying. I don't know what just happened, but we both kind of had a weird moment right now, and I don't know what's going on. But yeah, that was my little spooky story. But like I said, I have a second one which was actually terrifying, and I know people are not going to believe me, especially if you don't believe me on this one. But if you want to hear that one, I will work up the courage and tell that story, but you got to tell me down below. All right.
In a way, it kind of sounds like a mimic because it's like saying that, oh, I'm here, and kind of sounding like her sister when it's not actually. And to me, I feel like it kind of seemed more playful than anything. Not playful, but like just kind of trying to mess with them rather than actually do them harm, because it seems kind of like a game and just to like scare her and make her uncomfortable, which obviously it sounds like it achieved what it was looking for. But it's so creepy that like they both kind of experienced it in their own ways with different senses. I, again, so fascinated when like people experience the same thing in different ways, and it like, to me, it really solidifies it as proof. And I think the fact that she kind of felt the breeze as she walked up to the door while her sister's claiming that there was something like standing there, like saying something to her, and she was visibly scared. Honestly, it feels like a very like dramatic and potentially traumatic experience, because there's just like a lot going on here. And I think it's something that I for sure would never, ever forget about. But also, as she said, you know, a lot of people, they like don't share their stories because there's a lot of skeptics and a lot of people who, even if they do believe, maybe might say that it's not real because they're afraid of being judged. So the fact that this story is like so crazy in itself and she's out here like sharing it is pretty great. And I do encourage everyone to continue to share stories like this because I love hearing them. In the second TikTok she shares with us, she tells us a story about a time she brought home an object that appears to be haunted from the store and how it affected her that night.
Another spooky story. This one makes me even more uncomfortable to talk about than the first one. And once again, this is true. You can believe me or not, but it happened and I really wish it didn't. In 2018, I went to a store and already the store made me kind of uncomfortable. I went there for a particular reason. But the store already made me uncomfortable because there were all kinds of things that were just around the like perimeter of the store that I was just kind of like, what is all this? But the vibes in the store was just off. But the weird thing was, the minute I got in the car with the item, I felt uncomfortable. Because I remember I kept looking over at my passenger seat for like no reason at all. And I was just like, oh. Like, I just don't feel right. Like, I shouldn't have even gone in there, but I did. Anyway, I get home, and all night, I kept looking like, I'm, you know, just enjoying my day. And my mom and my grandmother lived with me at this time. And I get home, I'm enjoying my day, but when I was in my room, every time I would be in my room, I'd look over to the, like, this one corner, and I just kept feeling this uncomfortable vibe. And I just kept glancing over at that corner. I'm like, what is going on right now with me? What's happening? At the end of the night, I laid down to go to sleep. And I was just getting into sleep good when all of a sudden it felt like, no joke, like something grabbed me here, but on the inside, like not my actual flesh, and was pulling me. Like pulling like my spirit, I guess, out of my body. Cause I felt like it literally, that was the image in my head. Cause that's what it felt like. I was being pulled up and like towards like, cause my bed was up against the wall. So it felt like I was being pulled in that direction. And I remember I was taking this long breath, like I was exhaling and I couldn't stop exhaling. And it was so long, like I don't even want to try and guess how long it was, but it felt like it was really long. And I was like long. And I remember like at this point, my eyes are wide open and I always sleep with the lights on anyway. So it's not like I was in the dark, and I'm laying there like, what is happening to me? And I come from a background where we pray, like, and we pray to God. And so in my mind, I immediately started praying, and I'm like going in praying. And I'm like, pleading the blood of Jesus. Like, if you know what I'm talking about is like a prayer warrior, that kind of praying. And I'm like, I remember saying like, I can't even think of all the words I said just at this moment because I hate telling this story. But anyway, I remember just as I really got into praying like really hard in my mind, all of a sudden the pulling sensation stopped. And then I swear it felt like a anvil or something was on my chest, because it felt like I started being pushed down into the bed. Like I would have thought I was going through the bed. That's how hard I was being pushed. And I remember now I can't not even, I'm no longer exhaling. I can't even inhale. And I remember being like, feeling the bed like, oh my gosh, am I going through the bed? And I'm like, what? Like, I'm praying, I'm freaking out at the same time. Like, what am I experiencing? And I remember after like maybe 2 minutes of that, everything just stopped. And I got up in the weirdest way. It was like a robot. Like, I just kind of, and I walked out of my room and I went to my mom. I was like, Mom, like, I need you to pray. I don't know what just happened, but I need that to never happen. That pulling was the scariest and weirdest sensation I've ever felt in my life. My mother got to praying. I threw away the item I had bought at that store, and I was just like, what in the world? I don't want to know what that was, but I never, ever, ever need to experience anything like that again. So that's my spooky story. I've had other crazy things happen throughout life, young and older, but that was probably the worst, believe me or not. But if you've ever had any crazy experience, please like comment below. I just want to know, had anybody else experienced something like that?
I am really, really wondering what the object was and what kind of store it was. Like, was it a thrift store and it was like some kind of object that maybe had negative energy from the previous owner? Or like, what was it? Like, did she go into some kind of a witchy shop and maybe it was just the incorrect kind where they had negative items? I don't know. Like, I feel like that's kind of an important aspect to the story. I'd really love to know what the object was and where she was that she felt so kind of uncomfortable in this place. But either way, it is insane to me that it's like she feels like she's like someone's pulling her soul and like pulling her upwards, and then all of a sudden she's like praying and it just like smushes her and is like suffocating her so she can't breathe. That is such an insane experience to have. Part of me wonders if maybe it was some kind of form of sleep paralysis, like it was her body's way of trying to tell her that that thing she brought home was not good and to get it out of the house before something worse happened, or if it was a result of some energy attached to the thing she brought home. I really have no idea, and I'm glad that she's like safe after such a frightening experience, because I feel like, I don't know, I for sure feel in danger if that happened to me. It's not like a, you know, like spooky experience. Like, that is absolutely frightening, and I'm very glad that she's safe after that. But I just, it's a really fascinating story that she, you know, brought something home that had such an immediate and impactful effect on her. Our next TikTok is by the user author Jenna Joanna, and she tells us a frightening experience that happened on Halloween night with some trick-or-treaters.
Something genuinely kind of creepy just happened a couple hours ago, Halloween. And I just have to share it with you. I've been handing out candy to the trick-or-treaters who come to my house, you know, for a couple hours. My roommate is gone. He's still working. I am definitely the only one in the house. So the doorbell rings. I open the door, and it's just these two, maybe 5-year-old boys. They're just sweet. They're adorable. They say trick or treat. So I've got my front door propped open. I'm handing them the candy, and then this one little boy looks around me and goes, "Who's he?" I am alone in my house. I like turn sideways, see no one's there, and I was just like, who? There's no one here. And he kept looking, and he went, okay. And then he just turned around and walked away. Once again, I am alone. Like, I kept it together because I've got these cute little kids trick-or-treating, but I shut that door and I literally just stood by my front door staring at nothing for a minute or two. Anyway, happy Halloween. I'm not sleeping tonight.
On honestly, I think it is a possibility that maybe the trick-or-treaters were kind of like messing with her to freak her out. But at the same time, you have no idea. Like, there could have been something there that they saw and were bothered by. Or maybe the child is just able to see things. I mean, I know people who have the ability to see spirits say that they've had experiences from a very, very young age. And also children in general are more susceptible to seeing things on the other side. So I feel like there's a wide range of possibilities. Obviously, you know, kids can kind of mess with adults sometimes, especially on Halloween. But I think it still does leave the door open for the possibility of there being actually something there. And I really would like to know what it was. Like, I wish they would have kind of elaborated more on what they were seeing. But, you know, in that situation, it's like, you got to pretend that you're not scared, because if it is a joke, they're obviously going to play into it more. So I think that'd be a really frightening thing. And especially being home alone, I'd be, like, really scared after that. Like, how do you go about your day? You're like, were they messing with me, or was there something there? I don't know. Our final TikTok of the video is by the user The Bonehead. And in this TikTok, we see what this user believes to be paranormal activity caused by her mother, who passed away earlier this year.
So my mom passed in January. I've been having issues with these lights. They have not been working, but this morning when I came to check the temperature, the switch was up and they were on. These lights have not been working. Okay, well, I'm freaked out by that because I never turned that switch on because I know that's not working. Fine. Well, Mom, can you flash the light if that's you? Mom, can you flash the light back on? Can you flash the light back on? Oh, okay, God. Oh, fucking God.
Obviously, there's no way to know what's actually causing this, like if it is her mother or if it's some other kind of entity. But I think it's really interesting that she knows that those lights specifically do not work, and she comes in there and they're magically, like, the switch is flipped and they're working. And then we can see in the second part of the video, the switch is clearly in frame and she is not flipping it on and off herself when the light flickers. So I think that is really, really interesting. And I think obviously like lights flickering is just such a common paranormal thing. It's always interesting when it comes up. But that is all I have for you guys for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts on any of the TikToks I included in this video. And if you come across any terrifying TikToks you'd like to see me include in a future video, feel free to tag me in them. My links are down below. I also would like to mention that if you guys are interested in special effects, spooky makeup content, that is what I do on Instagram and TikTok, and I also sometimes share it on Shorts here. I am a makeup artist and I love to share that kind of spooky content on my other platforms, so if you are interested in that, please feel free to check it out. And if you guys like this video, please be sure to give it a big thumbs up. I will pop a couple of video suggestions on the screen for you in a second. Please click the subscribe button and turn on my post notifications so you never miss a video. I post every Sunday and sometimes Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and I will see you next time. Bye.